Hello, I'm Rob Constantine, and this is Paranormal Record. All right, well, everybody, welcome back to the show. Here we are, another exciting episode of Paranormal Record. I'm your host, Rob Constantine. Welcome back, Season 2. Today's episode, it's really, really cool, very interesting, and I was really blown away with it, and then the thoughts that I had over the next couple of days, editing it and going through it. But it's really crazy and it's really nuts to think about it and what was happening to my guest when she was younger, and that she thought it was all so normal and thought it was all just because everyone said that they had imaginary friends. She assumed that her imaginary friend was also just like everyone else's. Everyone had friends like this, and she was very sensitive and saw a lot. And I think that as she got older, she believed away a lot of it, or unbelieved away a lot of it. And she says that it got weaker with time, or that it just wasn't as prevalent in her life as it was when she was a young girl, because she said, well, I don't want this. I don't want to see these things, and I don't want to be open to these things. And I think that people that are sensitive have to struggle with this. And then once they realize what they're seeing and what they're experiencing is not normal, is not like everyone else, and then they start to lose their sensitivity, which, you know, I understand. Aunt Louisa, she said she didn't want it. Um, Lisa Bose said she didn't necessarily want it. I mean, I get it. I That's a lot to deal with, but I hope that you find today's episode as incredible and great a story as I did, and I'm really looking forward to it. This is a longtime friend of mine, Alisha, and her husband have been coming to my karaoke shows. I host karaoke for a living in Atlanta, and these guys have been coming and singing at my shows for a long time. And I see them at conventions and stuff, and Alicia's like, I've been listening to your show since the beginning. And I'm like, what? And she goes, and I want to be on your show. I have a story for you. What? I'm so excited. And it's a great show. It's a great episode. You're really in for a great story today. Here she is, without further ado, Alisha. Hey, Alisha, welcome to the show. What's going
Hey,
on? How are you?
hey, Rob, doing pretty good tonight.
Very cool, very cool. Well, this is exciting. You're a long time listener of the show from the beginning, apparently. That's awesome.
Yep. As soon as you put up that you were doing it, was like, this looks really interesting. And I got really into it.
Oh man, that's so great. Do you have a favorite episode or some key moments that you've enjoyed while listening that maybe some other listeners can align with? Maybe I don't know. What were some good moments or your favorite episode so far?
Oh, oh, trying to pin that down because every one of them's had their own kind of spark.
You say the nicest things. That compliments will get you everywhere. They'll get you everywhere. When can I come over and clean your car? When would you like that lawn mowed? I'll do it. Um, it's so nice. I'm so glad. Thank you for listening and just being on board. Part of the paranormal nation out there listening to the shows. I love that there's something happening in every episode. I can agree with that. I think that's true. I think that every episode has kind of some really cool things that come up, and then everything is worth listening to and worth listening to the next just for those moments. I think that's what the show is really about. I
Yeah.
think you're doing it. I think you're doing it right.
Yep.
Well, you have some experiences that you'd like to talk to us about today. And have you always been sensitive, or like kind of start us off at the beginning? The floor is yours, Alicia.
I think I really have always been kind of a sensitive to this stuff. I mean, because as far back as I can remember, I mean, the just, I always was a precocious child, as my parents put it, and highly imaginative, which I think brings into the very first story, which, I'm sure everybody's heard of the kids, that have that weird imaginary friend when they're little. That one that
Right.
when they start really talking about it, something's odd about it.
Yeah.
Well, I had one of those. Um,
Okay.
I was probably, oh goodness, 4, 5 years old. No, 3, 4, when there was this guy that kind of just, I don't know, I don't remember exactly how we made friends, but it always seemed odd to me that he had this big wound in his head.
Wow.
And it,
Yikes. Yikes.
it didn't bother me. I wasn't scared by it because he felt protective. I felt safe around him, but nobody else seemed to see him. And, he mentioned to me, don't tell the adults, it'll bother them. So I didn't. They knew I had an imaginary friend. They knew me by the name of Herman,
Yeah.
but that's about all they knew. And, we play all the time. I'm trying to remember exactly how much older, but he was definitely older than me.
And
Maybe
and
just
he was in the
pre-teenage.
oh, okay. So it wasn't an adult. It was like a kid.
Yeah, almost teenager, but yeah,
But he
kid.
would he would he would play with you, like he'd play games with you and sit and play with your toys with you, like for
Yeah, I
like
mean,
hours at a time, or like here and there, like
yeah,
came in and
hours
out,
at a
or
time.
hours at a time. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he couldn't really move anything. I had to do all of that, but there were
Did
plenty
you
of games we could play and stuff.
did you
So
pick up on that pretty quickly, or did he tell you, or
I
did
noticed, but
okay.
I was a kid,
Wow.
I wasn't
Wow.
paying that much attention to it, you know,
But
and
you remember what he looked like?
I do.
Yeah.
He was kind of tall, dark hair, short, uh, just, you know, tannish skin, like kind of like he'd been working on the farm or something. Because
Okay.
this is where I think I picked him up at my grandmother's house.
Wow. Well,
Because
so then, yeah.
my my mom's mom lived in a house that was half a mile up from a cemetery
Okay.
where I used to play all the time as a kid.
Oh, you
That's
played in the
just,
cemetery.
oh yeah, it was my favorite place to go, especially way back in the farthest part of it, which dated all the way back to before the Revolutionary War.
So you would walk from your grandmother's house to the cemetery and just play by yourself.
Me, my cousins, my sister, yeah, we all played up there.
And how old were you guys? Like you said you were four, like, but like how old were you guys at this point?
At about that age, I mean, we started playing
Okay.
down there almost as soon as we could ride bikes.
Man, that's cool. But I guess you were with some older kids though. You weren't just like 4-year-old on her own in a graveyard down the road,
No, we were by ourselves
but with each other though.
with each other, but
Yeah, okay.
yeah, I mean, I'm the second oldest grandchild on that side.
So
So,
the 4-year-old was with the younger children at the graveyard.
well, when they would come down there with us for like walks
Yeah,
and stuff, but sometimes the adults would come, you know,
that's
but
cool.
most of the time it was
Wow.
just us going down there riding bikes and playing
Yeah.
amongst the headstones, which I know
Okay,
some people
so
think's odd, but that was what we did.
I mean, it's a large area. It's not your grandmother's house. It's not your grandmother's front yard. It's fun. it's something different, right? Like it's kids will always, I remember as a kid, just like every place I went was like, all right, how can I play here? And then we would just figure that out, right? Like, and if there were other kids, I'm sure they wanted to play too. I would just go up to them and ask. It was just like, you're a
Yeah,
kid, I'm a kid, let's do this. Like it was like a universal language at that point. Like I remember like, hey, how can I play here? Okay, what games can I play here? Or no matter where
right.
it was, right? Like I remember that was just a thing.
And some of the bigger ones in the back were great for hide and seek. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like I said, this is an
Okay.
ancient cemetery, but yeah.
Yeah. So
Anyway,
how did this progress? Right. Yeah. Wow.
I mean, he played with me. He seemed very protective. He wasn't always there, but and he would. It wasn't just at my grandmother's house though.
Right.
He followed me home.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he was everywhere with me until probably I want to say I was 9, 10 years old when um well the only way I could put it now, my perspective at the time was he was leaving. My perspective on it now is I probably helped lay him to rest
Okay.
because I never figured out who he was or any of his background really, but I remember I helped him pick a stone that would be his headstone and laid him to rest. He didn't die, but he was buried.
In y'all's games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in my grandmother's backyard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that was
So
the
it was
only way I
was
could
that
put it.
was that his idea or your idea or
His idea.
it was his idea? He said,
It was his idea. He was like,
why don't we play funeral? Why don't we play funeral and why don't you bury me?
yeah, something like that.
Oh my God.
I know. I mean, thinking back on it from an older perspective now,
Right.
I think he may have been murdered and not totally laid to rest. And
Yeah.
I gave him that.
Wow, Alicia, that's so incredible. That's so powerful. Like that's wow.
Mm-hmm.
Did he
So
did he did he sleep in your room at night or did you go to sleep and say good night to him at some point and then he would leave and you went to sleep or did he go to sleep with you or how did that go when you were done playing and had to go to bed or you had to leave or whatever? Like were there times when he just left and where did he go when that happened?
yeah,
Or did he just say goodbye and disappear or what how did that go?
he just stayed out. I thought he was imaginary, honestly.
Okay.
You know, as a
So
kid,
the
I'd heard kids have imaginary friends. Oh, this is my
right,
imaginary friend. So
right.
it didn't seem odd that he would, just kind of fade out every now and then.
Oh wow.
But, I thought about it when I got older and I went, wait a second. This wasn't quite as innocent. Well, I mean, it was still innocent, but
Yeah, right. Nothing happened, right? Like nothing,
right.
nothing bad happened, right? Like and it was like, well, I'm not making this up. As you get older, you find out that imaginary friends are, people making things up, and you're moving their mouth in your head. You're kind of like, what would they say? But this guy interacted with you. It wasn't, you didn't have anything to do with his responses. He was there,
It was just there. And like I
right?
said,
Yeah,
thinking back on that head wound,
yeah,
what kid has an imaginary friend with a giant hatchet wound in his head?
right. You didn't put that there, right?
I didn't put that there.
Right.
Mm-mm.
You say it was a hatchet wound. It was definitely like a cut.
Yeah, it was a giant
Yeah,
cut up the side of his head.
yeah.
And
Were
I
the rest
remember
of
at
his
first
were
I
the
was
rest
like,
of his
does that hurt? And he would tell me, no, it doesn't hurt anymore.
was there
And then
blood
I,
on him? Was there blood on him on his clothes or anything else? Or was that part of it, or was it just the wound and it looked clean? Like how did that work?
yeah, it looked kind of clean. There wasn't
Okay,
really blood,
okay, okay.
you know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, he was just my best friend for a long time. Until my sister got old enough to be, closer friends.
Do you remember any conversations you had or advice he gave you as an older person, or any conversations or highlights that you can remember that what did you guys talk about or but besides the obvious of does your head wound hurt, right? But like
Yeah, because that didn't last very long at all. I just kind of let it go.
Right.
Uh, I don't know. He would sometimes give me advice when I had questions. He felt like an older brother. But of course I don't have an older brother. I
Right.
like I said,
You don't remember any exact conversations or anything said.
not really. I just kind of remember we'd pal around and play and actually he did introduce me to some other entities.
Shit,
He
Alicia.
called his family.
Oh
I
my
was like,
God.
really? I
Okay.
think they may have been other spirits from the cemetery because
Definitely.
I only saw them when I was at my grandmother's house.
All right. So how did that day go? What was that like?
They were just there, you know. They'd walk by, they'd smile, they'd wave, and then they'd go on their way.
But they were definitely different than the other people that were walking by or other people that were actually in the reality. There was a difference between them.
Yeah, like the way they'd be dressed. Like I said, it's a very old cemetery.
Right.
And I could tell by their clothes. But again, as a kid, I thought I was just making up a world.
Right.
So, I mean, I remember that. And I never really talked to any of them, though. They would just kind of be there sometimes. But, it wasn't much to that more than just I remember seeing them and we would wave at each other sometimes, but that was it. So
I mean, I guess they were probably enamored of the fact that you could see them because
probably, yeah.
other people couldn't, and then they were waving maybe to check and see if you did see them because they if they didn't talk to you directly,
No,
right? So
no,
they probably were communicating as much as they could. Maybe they couldn't talk to you. I don't know.
I don't think they could. That's
Right.
the thing.
Yeah.
I I still see spirits sometimes, but I cannot hear them.
That's
It's like a video with no audio. Always
maybe
has been.
there's strengths to people's sensitivity, and maybe that's the end of your strength where you can't hear them. And there's less where you have a gift than others. There's less of that gift, or that gift is different, and so you don't get audio spectrum of what you're seeing. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I think that's
Or
it.
yeah, and then also you're seeing reoccurring things, maybe, so that you said it's like a video, like watching a video while you're there. It's not in your head though. You're not dreaming or anything. It's like it plays while you're there, right? The video plays while you're
Right.
there. But it that doesn't seem aware of you. It comes in and out, and then it stops sometimes.
Sometimes it is like watching a recording. You know,
Right. Yeah, that's like a recurring haunting where it's not aware of anything. Like people, like when ghosts walk through doors that aren't there and they disappear as they walk through the wall because there used to be a door there. It's not there
right.
anymore.
Like
Right.
the time I saw a horse-drawn carriage go through my parents' bedroom.
Okay, that's a whole story you can tell us right now. We are listening.
Well, I mean, there's not much story to that other than I just saw it happen. Never happened again.
And it went through the wall and into the next wall.
Yeah, just right through the house.
Did it have sounds? No sounds.
No sounds. No. I just saw it and I went, well, that was odd.
Was there someone driving it?
No, there
Wow.
I could see the horses,
Wow.
but there was no driver. No, it just
Wow. Wow. That's so cool. I know people, there's stories about people seeing whole armies pass by houses
mm-hmm. Oh,
in,
Gettysburg was
in
fun.
a distance, right? Oh, tell me about Gettysburg.
Well, my dad is very much into Civil War history and stuff, and we were going up to visit my family yeah, they were in Connecticut at the time. So we passed through Pennsylvania, and my dad was like, "Well, we've got some time, so let's stop and see Gettysburg." And we were
Sure.
all like, "Okay, sure," because I'd been going to reenactments with my dad for a while, and I didn't know anything about I knew about the battle and stuff, but I didn't realize just how haunted the place was.
A
And
lot of people died there.
I didn't have a lot of interactions there, But I do remember seeing some things, and there is a photo, and I have not been able to find it since. And I
Yeah,
think it may not
ghost photos
exist
are like
anymore.
that. Ghost photos are like that.
Yeah, I mean, but I clear as day remember seeing the picture when we got the film developed later. And it was my
Okay.
sister, my little sister, probably 7, 8 years old herself at the time, with this glowing ball sitting over her shoulder.
Wow.
But I have not been able to find the picture since.
And your dad didn't say anything that's weird or anything like that about the picture?
I think they just thought it was like sunlight glare or something.
Hmm.
But that's why I really wanted to find the picture and really take a good close look at it again. But like I
Yeah.
said, I can't find it now. But yeah, Gettysburg was interesting because it wasn't like I really saw a lot, but I could definitely feel a lot of stuff. I don't see as much anymore now that I'm older as just sometimes feel, but
And what are the feelings involved?
just like there's a presence. I mean, this can bring into a family ghost from here and back to my grandmother's. Um, well,
Okay.
my mom's dad passed away while she was in high school. I don't know the whole gritty story other than he came from home from work one day to have lunch with my grandmother and dropped dead of a heart attack in the bathroom.
That's yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I didn't know all of that as a kid,
Right.
but there was this bathroom in my grandmother's house right by the back entrance where everybody comes in, and I always felt uneasy about it when I was little.
Okay.
Didn't want to go in there by myself, didn't want to be around it by myself. Not that it felt evil or anything, just I felt like I was being watched. And
Hmm. Yeah.
and I didn't like being watched because I couldn't see anybody.
Yeah.
When I got older and found out that that was where my grandfather had died, it started to click into place.
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
pretty sure that was my grandfather
Yeah.
hanging around, keeping an eye on my grandmother.
Yeah. I like that idea.
Because once I got older, I would actually sometimes when I would go by there, I would go, "Hey, Grandpa," and I would just almost get this feeling, this almost like this burst of acknowledgement.
No adults commented on those little things you would say, like, "Hey, Grandpa."
I would whisper it. I would do it when no one was watching because,
Okay. Okay.
again, I didn't want to upset any of the adults, so I didn't say anything to any of them.
Okay.
I figured if they were going to, they'd say something.
But you
Nobody ever
figured
did.
you figured that out as a kid, what you were sensing, though. You knew what
Yeah,
it was.
once I was a little older, I figured it out, and I was like, okay, it's still a little creepy, but I can
Yeah.
understand this.
Okay.
Because I knew how much my grandparents had loved each other. Of course, found out after my grandmother's death that they eloped. That's how much it
Oh,
was.
yeah. Sometimes you gotta low.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I regret not helping to go clean out the house after we moved my grandmother out because I want to hope he followed. I want to hope that when she passed away about 10 years ago that he finally got to go to rest.
I don't know if that's on you though. He probably found his own way. I don't know if he.
Not on me, but
Yeah.
I wish I knew for sure,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah,
Yeah.
so there was that, and
Wow.
yeah, that one was kind of where I really he was the whole reason I started really figuring things out.
Okay.
But definitely, I never saw him, but I could feel things, and it was like I could feel happiness, attention, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it happened again with my other grandfather.
Okay.
So I was in my early 20s when he passed. And I'd go to the house and I could kind of feel him still hanging around. And I knew automatically it was him, because I grew up in that house and
Right.
that was a different feeling. And it was like a familiar presence. Well, my grandmother had to go to the hospital, had some surgery. So I went down to stay with her and my uncle to help out until, she was a little stronger. And night before I was going to leave, all three of us had the same dream about him. This came out at lunch that day. My uncle kind of just mentioned that, he'd had a weird dream about grandpa. And my grandmother was like, well, that's weird. I dreamed about him last night too. And I was like,
Okay.
me as well. All three of us had the same dream of him coming in, saying hi, giving us a hug, and just letting us know he was okay.
Each in your own dreamscapes, though, not together. You guys weren't in each other's dreams.
No, but we all had the exact same dream, the exact same night.
I like that. I think that's really, I think that's I think that's a little bit farther than a coincidence.
Yeah, I don't,
I think that's way beyond coincidence. That's pretty cool. That's really
mm-hmm.
cool.
And then but I know he did pass when my grandmother did, because my grandmother only survived him by 7 months.
I'm
So,
sorry to hear that. Yeah.
well, again, there was a lot of love there, and she was never quite the same without him.
I believe in that stuff. Yeah, I understand that.
I
Yep.
think he just waited, so he was there when she passed, and they went on together. I mean,
No, that's
you
my
know,
heart. That's beautiful. Yes,
50
I
years of
like it.
marriage, 50
Wow.
plus years.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's special. That's special. I really like the idea that I really like that story that you guys all have the same dream on the same day. And then I'm glad someone said something, but you probably eventually would have said something because apparently it was pretty vivid dream, it sounds like, and relevant
Yeah.
to be in that house too. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, that just kind of, yeah. My
Yeah.
grandmother reacted more to it, but yeah, it was,
Wow.
yeah, because we never really talked about any of that kind of stuff much when I was younger, but I just kind of knew what I knew and kept it to myself mostly. But yeah, so and I
Wild.
continue. I mean, going back, 50th wedding anniversary for them, the restaurant we went to was an old manor house, and me
Okay.
and I think my cousin as well both saw a lady up in the upper window as we were leaving, waving bye to us. The upper part was blocked off, and
Okay.
we had heard stories that the house was haunted by one of the former owners, very benevolent spirit, and I'm pretty sure the two of us saw her on our way out. She was
Right.
wearing a really old green dress, just up in the upper window, right behind the glass, waving goodbye.
Did you wave back?
Of course, I waved back.
But did you know what you're looking at? Did you know the difference of spirits
Yeah,
or people at that
well,
point, you think?
we've been there. They had told us stories. So as soon as I saw her, I was like, yeah, I know exactly who this is.
Oh, well. How old were you when that happened again?
Oh, 19.
Yeah, so you knew the difference at that point of
Yeah,
the
at that
people that
point,
you were seeing. Yeah.
I was practically an adult. I knew.
That that would be crazy to go for a ghost tour and then have one of the ghosts on the tour they talk about wave at you at the end of the night. That's wild. That's wild. Well, who did you see? Who do you think it was?
I do not remember her name, and for the
Okay.
life of me, I cannot remember the name of the restaurant either. But it was
It wasn't that place in Marietta, the 1846 house or whatever
No, no.
back in the day or whatever. That place is gone too. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember. I just remember a lot of green. And we had booked the place because it was really fancy for my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary.
And that sounds like that place in Marietta, but only the sign is there now, and the property is privately owned. But there's a sign on South Cobb that says blah 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 house, but I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, I wish I could remember. I could probably ask my parents or my aunt, but I just never think about it.
Cool. I feel that.
Yeah.
Wild, 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 wild.
Mm-hmm.
Was this at night or during the day? Was there backlight?
It
Was
was
there
during the
lighting in
day.
the? Oh, it was during the day.
Oh
Oh
yeah, it
wow.
was. Yeah, we were
And
there for
that
lunch.
and that person you saw was like wearing period clothes as well, or look like
Period
older
clothes,
clothes as
and
well.
she was slightly transparent.
That'll that'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly transparent. That'll do it. And you noticed all that through a window you saw her in? Wow. There was
Yeah,
a second floor where that was closed off too, right?
yeah. Second floor, up in one of the attic windows, I think.
I'm telling you, man, that house from that restaurant, all the things I remember looks like where you were. It might have been that.
Might have been. I mean, the
Yeah.
stories went that sometimes people would see her in the bathroom mirror, and you know, things had been stopped from falling in the kitchen before, and stories like that was what we were hearing from our server.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't try to go out of my way to find her, but you know, apparently she was very welcoming.
Yeah. Yeah, she shut up at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she didn't want to scare you too much.
Yeah, but I think my cousin saw her too because we were both just kind of looking back, and she kind of started a little. So
Oh, what did your cousin say? Anything?
she didn't really say anything. No,
Oh, you should have talked
we
to
were with
her.
our we were with all the family at the time, and you
Sure.
know my cousin's Wiccan, but at the time we weren't open with the family about that.
Oh,
So
okay. Well, yeah. You might want to ask her now and see what she thinks.
yeah, might. I don't know. I haven't talked to her in so many years now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, we just kind of lost touch.
I haven't seen my cousins in a while either. I wish I talked to them more.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, I don't even know if she'd remember or not, but maybe I will ask her next time I see her.
It's a pretty cool story. I would definitely remember some stuff like that. Of course,
Yeah.
the guy that has a ghost podcast, he would. Yeah. Yeah. Um. Cool. All right. Wow.
Yeah.
Any other stories?
Trying to remember some of the vivid ones because so many of them I think I've just kind of, you know, passed off. And because there was a long time when I tried to deny what was going on. It's like, I've got to just be imagining this, because that was what my parents would tell me, that the stuff wasn't real. But I was always really into ghosts and stuff and trying to understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, trying to think if there were any other really significant ones. And like I said, there was Gettysburg, Chickamauga. That was another one. But a lot of those, battlegrounds are going to have that kind of energy.
What happened in Chickamauga?
Just basically about the same thing. Just very
Feelings.
heavy feelings. Like there was something there that nobody else was seeing, and
Hmm.
but it was a huge Civil War battleground, of course. You
Right.
know, yeah, yeah. I mean, just lots of experiences, little things. Seeing things out of the corner of my eye. I mean, my sister and I are both convinced that our cats are still haunting us.
I mean, I've heard of haunted pets. I've heard of that. I've read about that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
You saw
like
the horses. You saw the
like when
horses with the carriage.
yeah, well, like when I moved in with Bill, um, he had a
Bill
cat.
Bryce.
Huh?
Bill Bryce.
Yes, but he'd had a cat just before I moved in. Passed away just before I moved in with him. Of course, I
Okay.
knew Kitty, but he'd had this habit of sometimes just getting up on the toilet lid and making it rattle around, like making the noise.
Okay.
That noise never stopped in that apartment. In fact, when we moved and we took his ashes with us, it moved to the next apartment.
The rattling of the toilet lid when you're not in the room.
Yep, when nobody was there.
Hmm.
Yep. Of course, it stopped after we moved into our house, but it did move from one apartment to another.
Hmm.
And then my our cat Jane that we had, I still sometimes swear I feel him snuggle up with me at night, and I'll sometimes I swear I see little orange cat in the corner of my eye, but he's not here anymore. And my sister
Yeah.
says that her cat India, same thing. India India had a very violent death, and but she apparently Lamanda swears up and down that she still appears. Even my nephew says he's seen her. So
Wild.
yeah,
Huh.
pets. I mean,
Yeah. We love them so, they
right.
maybe just stay with us. I know that my dog would want to be with us. If he was a ghost, he'd come back here. So that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. We're the ones that love. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
yeah.
a weird thing. That's a weird thing with ghosts. They get to haunt the ones they love, or they stay around where they used to be, or they don't, and you just see strangers. Like the ghosts that you see would be strangers. But that was another conversation I was having with some other enthusiasts on the ghosts that we see are always personal to us, and that's a thing. We don't just if with the theory that joined with the idea that we see spirits, we would see more than just the personal spirits that we see.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we just see a milieu of strangers all the time if we're going to see ghosts? Why is it just the loved ones that we see or people related to us that we see? It should be a Times Square version
You
of
would
so
think.
many ghosts
You
we
would
don't
think.
know, right? So
But yeah,
yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't know.
it's
I don't
just
know what that
seems like
I don't
it's
know
the
what that
ones that
means.
reach out.
It's the ones that reach out. And then also, your grandfather and your friend's cat, and those are all personal to you guys. But it would make more sense, and of course, none of it makes any sense. But it would make more sense for you to see more of those strangers you saw at that graveyard than just people that you knew or people related to you.
Right.
If you were sensitive, and those that are sensitive, not if just it's just the thing. We're just trying to put broken pieces together that nothing adds up in paranormal stuff. Nothing adds up. It's all this is none of it makes any sense.
No, it doesn't. But
We were just theorizing on different things, but the cat thing goes into that vein of people we love. That's who we get to see.
hmm
That's who reaches out to us, and goes along for animals too. But
yeah.
I had some experiences growing up when a cat would jump on the bed, but all the cats that I had at present time would be in my view, or I knew
Right.
they were downstairs. And then I'd feel something jump on the bed, and all the cats were either in my vision or downstairs. Like I could see them squarely, and nothing was
hmm
jumping on the bed, but I felt it. But
Yep.
the problem is that I can't remember if I was dreaming at the time. I can't remember. It was such about that time when I fell asleep and dreamed that I can't remember the difference. My memory doesn't state differently whether I was asleep or not. Right. But I do
Yeah.
remember looking around and realizing that jump, that one hit from whatever animal jumped from the floor to the bed, all of the animals that I could see were like you.
Yeah, just so well sometimes
Yeah.
just in a state of mind where you're just more open to it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think sometimes my theory on it is sometimes they just reach out because they don't want to be forgotten as well. I've heard it said before that people experience three deaths. There's the death of the body, there's the death of being buried, and then there's the death of being forgotten.
Right. And the more people, the more that we remember the dead and those that we have lost, the more they stay alive in our hearts and our memories. But that is
Mm-hmm.
true on a scientific level too, that if people stop talking about you, then you are forgotten.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole, where the tradition of taking flowers and stuff to cemeteries and all came from. You're trying
Mm.
to help your loved ones stave off that final death. Or at least
Mm.
that's always been my theory.
And the people that we truly remember and celebrate, we talk about them now and sing songs about them and all those things. And
Mm-hmm.
that keeps them alive. I wouldn't know who George Washington was unless he was the president of the United States
Right.
or all the things that he did. I wouldn't know who Ben Franklin was, right? But like I do. I do know who Edgar Allan Poe was because of the books he wrote, right? Like so it's all about the legacy, but I like I like the idea of us keeping our memory of our loved ones alive by talking about them. And I support that. I think we should talk about people and the good times we had, not just about the fact that they're gone, but we should celebrate them and every day that we're with people that knew them and loved them too, we should talk about them. And it's okay to talk about them because it's
Yeah,
good to be remembered and you want to be remembered. You know,
exactly.
that's how we honor them and keep them alive in our hearts. And I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy too. I don't think you should not talk about people that are gone. I think you should talk about them, all the good things that happen. It's a good thing. It's a positive thing. And
Yep.
you know, everybody mourns in different ways, and some people can't handle that kind of stuff. That's okay too. You know, they
Yeah.
can leave. They can get up and leave, or they can say, "Listen, let's not talk about them right now because I can't take it." That's also acceptable. But after a time period, I think that it is healthy to talk about them and talk about the good times and just to never speak of them again after they die. That what? Who does that? Why would you
And
do that? You
and you
know,
never
you
know
got to
what'll
talk about
happen.
people.
You never
What's
know what'll
that?
happen. Like at my grandmother's
Yeah,
wake, after her
yeah,
funeral, we all went back to my great aunt's house, and we
yeah.
were all just kind of sitting around talking. And the the subject of my uncle having a
Mhm.
motorcycle came up. Well,
Okay.
he had a motorcycle accident and gotten really hurt. Well, everybody told my grandmother it was a car accident, but we were talking about it and mentioned the motorcycle. And all of a sudden, there was an explosion up the road, just out of nowhere. We all laughed. We were like, yep, Granny knows about the motorcycle now. The entire,
Wow.
so all of us were like, yeah, Granny knows about the motorcycle now. Whether it was that or not, but just
Yeah,
the timing on it was just
yeah,
kind of, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, because it was the first time we'd openly talked about it, since her death. And yeah, we all laughed, of course. We were all like,
yeah.
yeah, she knows now. My uncle just kind of got a little sheepish. Oh,
Well, so is there anything, do you have any memories or anything else you can remember from the things you told us, time with your imaginary friend, or um, any more battlefield stories, or anything else you can remember about the stuff you told us today so far? Any details, more details?
no details. I mean, well, I mean, there's the fact that with my mom's dad, I think I'd even identified which object that he was holding on to. There was a cologne bottle that looked like a blue like 50s muscle car,
Okay.
and it always just kind of for some reason felt very connected to him. And I think that I want to say that might have been his touchstone. At least I always seem to think so.
Is that what a touchstone is? Is it a haunted object? Is that what a touchstone is?
Yeah, I would say that a haunted object or something. Yeah, it's it's a physical object that they can use to hold on to themselves here.
Yeah.
And that's the other reason I wish I'd been there when we cleaned out the house, because I so would have taken that bottle.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to it, but I would have asked for that bottle.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I was not able to go. I think I want to say I was finishing up college or something, and just I couldn't go. And I will always regret that.
Yeah.
Because if nothing else, it would have been nice to said goodbye to the house before they sold it. Yeah. Although I have
Yeah.
driven by since then, but somebody
You
else
know,
lives there now. So
my sister like totally wrote a letter and put it in the mailbox of our old address, and then just asking to see the house and if they wouldn't mind if we could just come and visit and look at the house and where we used to live. And the homeowner called her and invited her, and my dad and her went without me. Still mad about that, but anyway, they totally went without me and went and got to visit. But that was just my sister kind of thinking out of the box, and she just asked. Sometimes you got to ask, and then sometimes people are totally open to that kind of stuff. So if you want to write them a letter and just put it in the mailbox, it couldn't hurt. They could, worst thing that can happen is they don't write you back or they say no. All right. That's totally their right. But I mean, just wondering about it, and I should also write them my own letter and go, because I've always wanted to go, and talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you and the people
yeah,
listening.
no, I'm listening. No, it's yeah,
Right? I
it's a
mean,
thought,
it's
but
something you can
up
just
there, it's a
ask,
4
and
hour drive.
oh, it's a 4 hour drive. We'll just you can send them a letter, and then if you're in that town, you can say, here, I'm going to be here on this day, and can I come by on that day? You know, That's
I hadn't
something I
really
need to
thought
do.
about that.
Yeah, the worst thing that can
Maybe.
happen is they say no.
Yeah, I mean, the worst they could do is say no.
Right? Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
cool.
Well, that's
Very cool.
kind of my
Sorry.
experiences.
Yeah, I do. I love the stories though. At least you told us so many really cool stories, and um, just very interesting about your imaginary friend growing up, and that you guys played a game where you buried him because that was his idea. Like that whole thing where it's like maybe he knew that you wouldn't be able to see him anymore because you were at a certain time, or he something was going on in his world and his existence that was going to stop the time you guys had together, or he was going to move on but needed you to do that for him so he could,
Maybe
right? All of those things, right? I
I
definitely
well,
think you were connected to that. Like maybe you did help him move on.
yeah, that's my hope.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. I like that a lot.
Oh yeah.
Well, cool. Well, Alicia, thank you so much for being on the show today, and thanks for listening and supporting the show. And also thank you for being my friend for I think about 20 years now, 15 years.
Something like that. Yeah. Bill and I
Yeah,
just had our
right.
20th anniversary. So yeah, I mean,
Who you and Bill had your 40th anniversary?
20th.
20th. I'm like, how is that possible?
Yeah,
20th is a
no.
long time too, though, Alicia. Geez,
Yeah.
that's awesome. When I was saying Bill Bryce, that's I always whenever I see her partner, I say his whole name. He's one of those. You say his
Yeah.
whole name when you see him because you just have to. So that's what that is. It's me shouting, Bill Bryce. That's the thing. It's true.
Yes.
He's one of those people. You have to say his whole name. For me, anyway. I don't know, but shout out to Bill and fantastic on you guys being together for 20 years and to 50 more for both of you. Goodness. So,
Oh yeah. One could hope.
right? Yeah. But thanks for coming. on the show, and this was your idea. You came up to me. You said, "I want to be on your show, man. I'm a listener." That's so cool. I love that.
Well, thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. All right, well, take care, Alicia. I appreciate you.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Right? So cool. That was an awesome story. Wow. Herman. Very, very dead. And then at the cemetery, they practiced a game. He said, "Let's bury me." And then they pretended to have a funeral for him. And then after that day, she didn't see him anymore. Man, that's crazy, y'all. That's crazy. I love this story. I love this guest. That was such a cool story. And then what about the other people in the graveyard when she was little? And then they would play games with her or just watch her play games with Herman, and then uh, they would seemingly try to talk to her, or she would talk to them, and then they would just motion, but they wouldn't say anything because they couldn't say anything, probably, right? And then this is the best part. She's like, "Oh yeah, well, I just remember one day when I was playing in the cemetery down the street from my grandmother's house. Like you do when you're a little kid. You just go play in the cemetery because it's got lots of headstones to play hide and seek around." And then he came home with me. Then he was there at night when I went to bed, and he would just kind of we would stop playing and I would have to go to sleep, and then he would slowly disappear, and I was okay with that. It never questioned it as a kid, because at the same time you believe in the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus and Scooby Doo, and there must be other magical talking dogs out there, just not your dog, right? Because Fred and Shaggy have a talking dog, right? And they solve mysteries and shit. I was always trying to debunk Scooby Doo when I was a kid. I'm like, I've seen dry ice at birthday parties, and I know that maybe if I had the right kind of lighting, I could make this dry ice look like a pirate ship. Uh, I'm just saying that at that time, when you're a little kid, and if no one tells you, hey, your imaginary friend has a hatchet wound in the side of his head, he's probably a dead person, he's probably a ghost, a phantom, a spectra, a spectra, a specter you're seeing, and maybe he's not a good guy, but Herman was a good guy. He never did anything or asked Alisha to jump in the lake or play let's see how long we can hold our heads underwater, or let's tie a rock to our waist and jump in the river. Like, it wasn't like that. He was another kid like her, and they played together, and he was her companion for a long time. I man, I find that so beautiful in a way. Like, this poor ghost was able to have a friend, and she was able to have a friend, and they had really awesome times together. Like, just do away with all of the, oh, this might not be a good spirit. Do away with all of the, I don't want my kid talking to a ghost, and I don't want my kid delving into the spirit world. I mean, I get all that, but then look at it for what happened, and nothing happened, and he was a good friend, and he was a companion to her, and then one day he had to go away, and he made it okay for her, right? Maybe he knew that he was going to have to go away, and that he didn't want her to be so sad because he was sad he would not get to see her again. And so he made it a game, and they played one more game. I think I see him as a little bit older than her, like maybe, and I guess that he had dealt with a lot in his corporeal form, right? Like in his ghostly form, he'd probably aged a little bit beyond his original years of whatever, year he died of. And, like, and then he knew that he would be gone, and so he just made it okay for her. And she said she wasn't really sad about it. Just like he would disappear at night when she went to bed, he just disappeared one day and never came back after the game where they played Bury Me, where they played Funeral. Oh man. I wonder if Alisha has ever done any research or any kind of I don't know, maybe we could find some kind of axe incident, murder, I don't know, in that small town that she grew up in with her grandmother lived. And I probably should find that out, and maybe we should do a little research and see if there was a murder, or see if there was an accident with an axe or a hatchet and a young boy died. I would love to know that, and who Herman was. I mean, we could probably start there at Herman. But I don't know. What a great story. What a great story. Alisha, thank you so much for coming on. I know you're listening. I always tell the guests when their episodes drop, and I'm like, oh, your show's dropped. Guys, I've got new stickers coming. So if you are interested in a Paranormal Record sticker, just email me and give me your home address, and I will send you a sticker. I'll pay for the postage. I want you to have some Paranormal Record swag on your laptop, or on your phone, or on the wall, or on your guitar case, so you can tell everybody about the greatest podcast ever made, besides Serial. And Morbid! What's up, girls? You freaking rock. I love Morbid so much. If you haven't heard of Morbid, go listen to that show. It's amazing. That's my favorite podcast, I think. But I really loved Serial as well. I listened to Serial twice through. And Serial was like my first podcast. But besides those two podcasts, this is the greatest one. Of course. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you have a story you want to tell me, please write into paranormalrecordpodcast@gmail.com. I want to hear your story. I would love for you to be on the show. If you have a tale to tell, even if it's a short tale, that's totally fine. Write in. If you have an hour's worth or more than an hour's worth, perfect. Write in. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to hear your story. And Paranormal Nation, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Alisha. Y'all take care, everybody. Good night.